federal election ballot despite an attempt to block her candidacy by an ally of current Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who is
a mayoral candidate being challenged. The saga
after an FBI raid exposed the depth of her years-long network of corruption, extravagance, and abuse of power, Tiffany Henyard, the self-declared super mayor of Dalton, finally turned herself in to the authorities. What had once been an untouchable reign marked by lavish spending on the town's dime has come crashing down, leaving the once promising leader facing an astounding 22 federal charges, including misappropriation of funds, financial concealment, and more. Henyard's lavish lifestyle, funded by taxpayer dollars, stood in stark contrast to the dire financial situation of the town, which now faces bankruptcy. As the mayor flaunted taxpayer money, Dalton's economy continued to spiral downward, and while the town struggled to stay afloat, Henyard lived as though she were royalty. The final straw came when the FBI, after years of investigating, moved in with subpoenas following whispers of her corrupt practices. In addition to the criminal charges, this isn't Henyard's first brush with the law. She has a previous conviction for trespassing. Now, however, she stands accused of a range of criminal actions that could see her serving up to 25 years in prison. One of the most shocking revelations has been her use of public funds to finance personal luxury shopping trips, including a $7,700 spree to Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair on September 1, 2023. Meanwhile, hardworking Dalton residents struggled to meet basic needs, fully unaware of how their tax dollars were being siphoned off to fund the mayor's lavish tastes. Far from using her position to help the community, Henyard seemed to treat her mayoral office like a personal playground. Police officers were even tasked with running personal errands for her, essentially serving as her own VIP security detail. The mayor's excessive travel habits further drained Dalton's finances, with more than $122,000 spent on trips that depleting the town's $5.6 million surplus and causing a $36 million deficit. The most egregious example of her wastefulness was spending $561,000 on a single driveway project, a move that would shock any taxpayer. Rather than investing in community development or services, from hiring expert hair and makeup artists to traveling in taxpayer-funded motorcades, her top objectives were upholding her image and way of life. Her behavior alienated both residents and employees, who, by all accounts, were watching the town crumble under her leadership, with public resources being diverted away from essential services and funneled into her personal desires. After the financial catastrophe became clear, Dalton residents were left to clean up the mess she left behind. It wasn't until a former police officer, a chief no less, blew the whistle on Henyard's massive abuse of power that the full scope of the corruption was revealed. The details of Henyard's alleged actions are far-reaching and demonstrate not just poor judgment, but a blatant disregard for the people she was elected to serve. The so-called super mayor, who once operated with a sense of untouchability, has now faced the legal consequences of her actions, with federal agents and the public closing in on the financial disaster she single-handedly created. Henyard's descent from respected political figure to criminal defendant has left a permanent scar on Dalton, with the residents now scrambling to pick up the pieces of their once proud community. The mayor's hubris and delusional sense of entitlement fueled her rise, but it has ultimately led to her downfall. With Henyard in custody, the locals can only hope for justice and accountability as they work to restore what was lost during her reign of extravagance and financial ruin. It is unclear whether Dalton will ever fully recover from the harm she has caused, or if the public's trust in the local government will be permanently damaged.
The doors are locked here, and there's a sign on the building right now that says it's closed. For how long? Neither residents nor...
Recent revelations paint an unsettling picture of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's tenure in office, which has been rocked by explosive allegations of misconduct and taxpayer fraud. Despite having her credit card privileges revoked, Henyard threw a lavish $555,000 party for the town, which included Wet and Jay Holiday, who performed 30-minute sets for $30,000 and $20,000 respectively. If that wasn't enough, she also spent $36,000 on a sound system, staff equipment, comedians, and even bouncy houses, which cost $6,600. Outspoken individuals, including Jennifer Roberts, were incensed about the misappropriation of taxpayer funds, and former trustee Valerie Stubbs described the event as a wasteful self-promotion scheme. Her apparent lack of financial responsibility has only served to increase public mistrust as federal investigators and taxpayers closely monitor her activities. However, the real twist came from her former ally and right-hand woman Carmen Carlisle, who came forward with damning evidence. For 2 years, Carlisle had a front-row seat to what she claimed was Henry's misappropriation of Dalton's funds, claiming the mayor treated the town's budget as her personal piggy bank. She later became the key whistleblower, turning over a stack of receipts to federal authorities. She also revealed the scheme she had witnessed. Her testimony has been a bombshell, exposing the inner workings of Henyard's alleged financial mismanagement and the bold actions taken to promote herself at the expense of the public. Henyard doesn't seem to be slowing down, which some people think will just make the scandal that is developing worse as residents cope with the fallout from Mayor Tiffany Henyard's tenure being shattered by shocking accusations of misconduct and taxpayer fraud. The FBI's investigation, bolstered by Carlisle's first-hand account, has put Henyard squarely in the spotlight. The most recent revelations paint a disturbing picture of her time in office. Even though her credit card privileges were revoked despite this, Henyard threw a lavish $555,000 party for the town, which included Wad and Jay Holiday, who performed 30-minute sets for $330,000 and $2,000 respectively, and $36,000 on sound system staff equipment. Former trustee Valerie Stubbs, who described the event as a wasteful self-promotion scheme, and Jennifer Roberts, who was upset about the misappropriation of taxpayer funds, were among the outspoken individuals who criticized comedians and even bouncy houses, which cost $6,600 for an event that only about 70 people attended. The public's mistrust of Henyard's apparent lack of financial responsibility has only grown as federal investigators and taxpayers closely monitor her activities. However, the real twist came from her former right-hand woman Carmen Carlisle, who came forward with damning evidence. For 2 years, Carlisle had a front-row seat to what she claimed was Henyard's misappropriation of Dalton's spells, claiming the mayor treated the town's budget as her personal piggy bank. Initially silent, Carlisle later became the primary whistleblower, turning over a pile of receipts to federal authorities. Her testimony has been a bombshell, revealing the inner workings of Henyard's alleged critics like Stubbs have highlighted the disparity between Henyard's extravagant spending and the low community turnout, citing financial mismanagement and bold actions taken to further her career at the expense of the public. Despite the mounting criticism, Henyard shows no signs of slowing down, a move that some believe will only stoke the flames of this developing scandal as locals cope with the fallout from what many saw as a flagrant abuse of public trust. The FBI's investigation, which was bolstered by Carlisle's first-in account, has put PL Henyard squarely in the limelight when the FBI, armed with subpoenas and a resolve to find every dollar that was misused, descended upon Dalton Town Hall. The story of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's downfall took a dramatic turn. This was not a casual inquiry, rather, it was a thorough investigation that aimed to expose the extravagant lifestyle that taxpayers had funded, from her lavish trips to the constant security detail that followed her around like she was a member of Hollywood royalty. The FBI looked into every aspect of her financial dealings, suspected misappropriation of public funds, and even the charity she publicly displayed. Every aspect of her business endeavors and campaign financing are being investigated by federal officials. The FBI's intervention is a long overdue response to the citizens of Dalton's long-standing calls for transparency in answers to inexplicable expenses and questionable judgments, and activists like Brittany Norwood haven't held back their criticism. For them, it's a surreal scene in Dalton, with Henyard emitting a reality TV-like persona. While her administration faces its collapsing reality, the mayor is presenting an image of business as usual, even as federal agents reportedly use advanced surveillance techniques to track potential wrongdoing by her and her political allies. Despite the village's desperate pleas for assistance, many people wonder why justice seems so slow. Despite the mounting evidence and public outrage, Dalton has been rocked by the FBI's investigation extent, and there are rumors that other people with connections to Henyard may soon be subject to the same level of scrutiny. The seeming discrepancy between the overwhelming accusation and Hen's ongoing defiance has angered and confused the locals who have witnessed their town on the brink of financial catastrophe. When Henyard turned herself into the FBI, she startled the town. One moment she was going about her daily activities as if nothing had happened, and the next she voluntarily went into federal custody, as many wondered why she would suddenly give up her opulent lifestyle and turned herself in, comparing her image of unweaving glamour to the reality of an inmate jumpsuit. Some conjectured that she might be attempting to reach an agreement with federal prosecutors, perhaps offering to expose other individuals involved in her alleged schemes in exchange for leniency regardless of her motivations. She has personal makeup artists at her disposal, which is a first for the town of Dalton as a whole, as well as for herself. Her dazzling public image has crumbled, and sources indicate that she is unable to pay her legal expenses, which caused her lawyer to drop her case. Henyard's now they find themselves in the starkly different atmosphere of the jail cell. Rise to power appears to have been driven by financial mismanagement and a network of influence. It took years for this to happen, and throughout that time, she reportedly exploited her position to further her own interests. While disregarding the needs of the community, she was tasked with serving as additional information about the embezzlement of public monies, and the deceptive Dalton people must cope with the considerable harm caused by her claimed action, which include financial dealings within her administration. Her resignation, which offers some hope for accountability, is just the beginning of the lengthy process of reconstructing a town that was brought to its knees by scandal. For a once powerful mayor, her image of authority and control has crumbled into a stark reminder of the consequences of unbridled power, leaving Dalton to grapple with its damaged identity and strive towards a future free from corruption. Mayor Tiffany Henyard took audacious and divisive actions to increase her authority as the town's financial crisis worsened, with nearly $20 million in debt and millions missing. One of her first acts was to pass an ordinance reducing her successor's pay to just $25,000. This was seen as a way to ensure her dominance and deter any potential challengers. The power grab was a reflection of the twisted control she had over Dalton for years, which sparked outrage and led residents to rally for justice. In order to clean up the mess, the desperate locals went to former Chicago Mayor Lori Lyall, who hired her for $400 per hour. This unusual action demonstrated the gravity of the issue. Henyard's exorbitant spending and contempt for the law had nearly brought down Dalton. One of her most heinous acts was allegedly spending $440,000 in a single day on Amazon, which is a sign of the unchecked financial mismanagement that has put the town under federal and state scrutiny. The Illinois State Controller intervened to stop Dalton's desperately needed payments of $135,000 because of the chaotic state of its finances, leaving residents looking for a way forward. Even Henyard's resignation and surrender to federal authorities have immediately alleviated the financial ruin she left behind. The mayor's administration has been beset by accusations of sexual impropriety during city visits, sexual assault against staff members, and intimidation of those who dare to oppose her. These revelations have left her once polished image in ruin, symbolizing an administration steeped in corruption and abuse of power. Former employees of the town have come forward with their own claims of mistreatment, including lawsuits alleging unjust terminations and wrongful firings for refusing to participate in dubious schemes. One such employee, Moon Trish, is suing Henyard at a move that reflects the mounting legal and ethical challenges the mayor faces. There was a collective sigh of relief when they saw Henyard in handcuffs, seeing it as a step towards reclaiming their town from what many have called an era of doom. However, as many questions as answers have been raised by Henyard's surrender to the authorities, Tiffany Henyard's continued presence as mayor of Dalton, despite the numerous criminal charges against her, has raised serious concerns about the integrity of the legal system, leading many to question how she can remain in power. With a growing mountain of accusations against her, her defiance in the face of mounting evidence and her apparent unwillingness to step down only deepens these suspicions, with some suggesting that her fight to retain office is an attempt to avoid facing the consequences of her actions as the criminal case against her progresses. Residents of Dalton are left grappling with the aftermath of a leadership gone A, and despite the uncertainty of her legal fate, they are determined to reclaim their community and rebuild what was lost during Henyard's troubled administration. The road to recovery will undoubtedly be a long and challenging one, filled with the daunting task of repairing the town's finances, which have been left in tatters after years of reckless spending, and addressing the emotional and psychological toll Henyard's alleged misconduct has taken on the local population, with widespread allegations of financial corruption, abuse of power, and a complete disregard for the well-being of the residents. Dolphin's trust in its local government has been shattered, yet in the midst of this turmoil, there remains a glimmer of hope as the truth surrounding Henyard's actions slowly comes to light. While the town's collapse doesn't promise an immediate fix to all of its problems, it marks a turning point in the community's fight for justice, accountability, and stability. Dalton now faces the complex task of not only uncovering the full scope of Henyard's wrongdoings, but also healing from the damage done over the years of mismanagement. Henyard's downfall in many ways represents an opportunity for true change, an opportunity for the town to rebuild and reclaim a sense of integrity and purpose in local leadership. The road ahead is undoubtedly uncertain, but it is the community's resilience and determination to hold those in power accountable that will ultimately define their recovery. The question now is whether Dalton will be able to restore faith in its leaders and chart a path forward free from the financial devastation and broken promises of the past. While Henyard's fall from grace has brought some measure of justice, it serves as a stark reminder of the challenges that lie ahead as the town works to heal and rebuild the trust and confidence that were so recklessly lost. The town of Dalton, once striving for a better future, now stands as a cautionary tale of unchecked power and financial mismanagement, yet it also holds a sliver of hope for a more united path forward. Dalton's plight deepened under the scandal-ridden administration of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who left the town drowning in nearly $20 million in debt and with millions of dollars missing from its coffers. The town's worsening financial crisis forced desperate residents to seek outside help, even turning to former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot for guidance. Lightfoot, in a bold and controversial move, consolidated her power by implementing an ordinance slashing her successor's pay to $225,000, widely seen as a tactic to deter challengers and ensure her influence remained unchallenged. While this step marked a drastic attempt to impose control, it also cast a light on Dalton's dire situation, drawing scrutiny from federal and state authorities as the Illinois State Comptroller halted payments of $35,000 to the struggling municipality due to the disarray in its finances. Residents were left grappling with how their once promising town could descend into such chaos. This unprecedented intervention highlighted just how precarious the situation had become. The financial mismanagement under Henyard's leadership turned into an insurmountable crisis, costing $400 per hour to clean up while the town teetered on the verge of collapse. Henyard's extravagance and blatant disregard for financial prudence reached new lows when it was revealed she had spent $440,000 in a single day on Amazon, an act emblematic of her irresponsible governance. The financial ruin brought on by such indulgence forced Dalton's residents to confront the daunting reality of a town whose infrastructure and services were crumbling, leaving them struggling to envision a viable path forward. Henyard scandals were not confined to fiscal matters, however. Former employees began stepping forward with claims of mistreatment, including lawsuits alleging wrongful and unjust terminations. One such former employee, Patricia, nicknamed Boom Trish, has launched a legal battle against Henyard, accusing the embattled mayor of retaliatory actions, which serves to underscore the growing legal and ethical challenges piling up against her. These lawsuits add another layer to the already complex web of scandals surrounding Henyard's tenure, as her behavior not only left the town financially crippled, but also cast a shadow on its sense of justice and accountability. The collapse of Dalton's finances serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to action for the remaining community. Federal and state investigations have intensified, peeling back the layers of unchecked spending and neglect that defined Henyard's administration. Meanwhile, Henyard has reportedly continued to deflect blame for the chaos she created. Her attempts to justify her decisions only further straining the relationship between the community community and its leadership allegations of using public funds to sustain personal luxuries like the infamous $440,000 Amazon spree fueled the perception of Henyard's blatant disregard for the people who entrusted her with their future. Amid the chaos, the people of Dolton find themselves at a crossroads, while the financial ruin cast by Henyard hand threatens to define this chapter of the town's history. It also offers a chance for redemption, renewal, and change. Former employees and residents alike are uniting in their calls for accountability, determined not only to recover from the disaster, but also to ensure it never happens again. This unity signifies hope for Dolton's future as the community rallies to rebuild its systems of governance, prioritize transparency, and repair the trust shattered by years of misconduct. Although the road ahead is long and fraught with challenges, the collapse of Henyard's administration may yet serve as the catalyst for meaningful transformation for Dolton's residents. The questions of justice and accountability remain central as they work to restore what has been lost. Will Henyard face the consequences of her actions? Will the town's finances ever recover from the catastrophic decisions made during her tenure? While the answers to these questions remain uncertain, one thing is clear: the residents of Dolton are committed to reclaiming their town's narrative and ensuring a brighter future for generations to come. This moment, fraught with uncertainty and difficulty, is also an opportunity to rebuild not just Dolton's infrastructure, but its community spirit, transforming a story of despair into one of hope and resilience. The once glamorous image of Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dolton, has unraveled spectacularly under the weight of accusations ranging from financial corruption and gross mismanagement to sexual impropriety during official city visits, allegations of sexual assault against staff members, and blatant intimidation of anyone daring to challenge her authority. What began as whispers about misuse of funds and inappropriate behavior spiraled into a full-fledged crisis, leaving her polished reputation in ruins, and the people of Dolton growling with the legacy of her scandal-laden administration. The sight of Henyard in handcuffs has brought a collective sense of relief to the weary residents, who see her surrender as the first tangible step toward reclaiming their community from a period they often describe as a reign of doom. Yet her arrest has only deepened the layers of intrigue surrounding her tenure, raising more questions than answers about how far her schemes may have reached, whether others in positions of power were complicit, and if her surrender to the authorities was a genuine moment of accountability or a calculated attempt to manipulate the system, perhaps even negotiate a settlement or shield key allies. Henyard's refusal to relinquish her position despite the mountain of accusations against her, including charges of financial misconduct, abuse of power, and sexual misconduct, has fueled doubts about the integrity of the legal and political systems meant to hold public officials accountable. For many, it's incomprehensible that someone facing such a litany of allegations could retain a position of authority, a situation that has only deepened the mistrust within a community already bruised by her leadership failures. While the uncertainty surrounding Henyard's case looms large, the people of Dolton remain resolute in their determination to reclaim their town and restore stability to a community battered by her alleged misconduct. The road to recovery is daunting, with challenges ranging from untangling the financial devastation left by her administration, millions of dollars reportedly squandered or unaccounted for, to addressing the emotional toll taken on residents and staff subjected to a culture of intimidation and abuse. Restoring confidence in local leadership will require rebuilding transparency, trust, and systems of accountability, all of which were corroded during Henyard's tenure. For a town that endured unchecked spending, rampant allegations of abuse, and mounting financial woes under her administration, her arrest represents not just an opportunity for justice, but also a critical turning point in their collective struggle for a brighter future. Yet the scars of Henyard's time in office are deep, with lingering fears that even her downfall might not be enough to resolve the systemic issues her leadership exposed. Henyard's apparent unwillingness to step down further complicates this path to recovery, signaling that the fight for accountability and meaningful change is far from over. Her administration has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, highlighting how how personal greed and misconduct can devastate an entire community. The alleged misuse of public funds, with reports of lavish Amazon spree and taxpayer resources directed toward her personal indulgences, turned Dalton's finances into a sprawling disaster zone. These reckless actions, compounded by accusations of abuse against staff members and inappropriate behavior during official trips, paint a picture of governance entirely divorced from the responsibilities of public service. As Dalton struggles to pick up the pieces, her downfall has provided a moment of hope and optimism, allowing the community to reimagine a future free from the shadow of corruption that had loomed over it for so long. While Henyard's arrest does not necessarily mean the town's problems will vanish overnight, it signals a pivotal step in the pursuit of justice and accountability, one that offers the people of Dalton a chance for genuine change after years of mismanagement and despair. The question now is whether Dalton can seize this moment and transform its narrative, emerging from this ordeal as a more united, resilient, and forward-looking community. The road ahead will be fraught with challenges, resolving financial chaos, rebuilding trust, and healing emotional wounds caused by years of neglect and abuse. But the possibility of turning the page brings with it a renewed sense of hope. As legal proceedings unfold and the truth behind Henyard's administration comes to light, the people of Dalton have a chance to reclaim their town's future, ensuring that the lessons of the past are not forgotten and that such egregious failings of leadership are never repeated.